On the other hand, from the other end, we have another process. More and more young people in Russia receive good educations. We had more and more people who were well-traveled, people who knew foreign languages, people who, who basically knew what does it feel like to live in the 21st century, and who knew what the modern world is. And every time they wanted to introduce this modern world in their Russian existence, they suddenly found huge resistance. You know, they wanted to make business, and they suddenly found out that their MBAs, have nothing to do with the Russian practice, because at Harvard or Chicago or Sorbonne or whatever, they never taught them about atkat, or about briberies of all types, or about how to work with the police to keep your business safe and so on. And same things, they happen everywhere. More and more people found that they are simply incompatible. Their ambitions, their lives, their careers, their businesses, their child care and so on are incompatible with the kind of evil and medieval system that we have in Putin's Russia. And I will give you another little example. This is a video based on real story. You can read the Russian subtitles.
Разрешите представиться, меня зовут Анатолий Барков. У меня нет ни кожистых крыльев, ни вампирских клыков. При занимаемой должности мне не сдались ударом. Подобного рода, знаете ли, пошлые аксессуары. Вице-президент Лукойла, это вам не бухры-бухры. Надо выглядеть солидно, без лишней мишуры. Все эти сатанистские приколы, сплошное ребячество. Сходство с реальным дьяволом тут отсутствует начисто. Настоящему демону-клоуном быть не пристало. Оставим маскарады с дёсом тяжелого металла. Я персонаж другого плана, существо высшего порядка. Мне не знакомы проблемы, нерешаемые взяткой. Мне неизвестны люди, чьи жизни важнее моих интересов. Меня не парит, что там обо мне напишет пресса. Если ты встал на пути моего Мерседеса, при любом раскладе ты виновник дорожно-транспортного замеса. Мерседес S666, прочь рутины, бей под колеса, не лезь. Жалкая червь трепещет на трассе Матрицы. Мы опаздываем в дорогу колесницы. Мерседес S666, прочь рутины, бей под колеса, не лезь. Жалкая червь трепещет на трассе Матрицы. Мы опаздываем в дорогу колесницы. Сегодня я буду вариться в соседнем котле с Евсюковым, но сейчас я жив, здоров и по полной упакован. Застрахован на все 100 от происшествия любого. Помимо прочего, мы давно знакомы с Вовой. Обладаю умением изменять пространство и время. Выходит из строя разом все камеры наблюдения, если на них засняты улики моего преступления. И засуньте себе поглубже свое народное мнение. Люди...
Okay.
You have to rephrase because it's very difficult to hear you when movie is on.
Do I have to repeat what I said? Okay. Okay. A Mercedes-Benz armored limo has smashed against a little French car named Citroën and killed 2 women who were there. And of course, this Mercedes-Benz was violating all traffic rules, like those so-called servants of the people always do in the streets of Moscow and other cities. This limo was carrying the vice president of Lukoil, one of the biggest Russian oil companies. By the way, you have plenty of Lukoil gas stations in America. Boycott Lukoil. So after this happened, only like half an hour has passed without investigations, without nothing. It was immediately announced on Russian TV that it were those 2 killed women, both doctors, by the way, a midwife and also a prenatality doctor, that it were them who were guilty in this car crash, although, well, it was absolutely absurd. So this was a video done by Noise MC, one of the best Russian young rappers. And this was like the very beginning of the new wave of new Russian protest music. The most important event which triggered the whole protest movement and kind of brought it to an unprecedented level, of course, happened on September 24th, 2011, when we had a Congress of United Russia, you know, the ruling Russian party, the Putin's party, at which Mr. Putin, then Prime Minister, and Mr. Medvedev, then the President, they have declared that from now on, you know, we have decided between us two, and we are happy to announce you that from next year we are going to swap our seats. Mr. Putin again will be the President, and Mr. Medvedev will take the Prime Minister seat. And this indeed has sent shockwaves, you know, to all the thinking people of Russia, you know, for several reasons. Not only because, you know, we didn't want Putin. You know, he was ugly and boring, and he was already a president for 8 years, and he proved that he was incapable as a president because, you know, he didn't fulfill his promises. You know, the corruption was growing, the crime was growing, the health care and education deteriorating, and so on. So he was useless, let alone kind of not nice. But it was also, you know, the fact of how it was done. It was like, you know, we here at the top, we here decide and you suck. And this, of course, it was terribly humiliating for all of us. And this is how the protest movement has started. Now let me play another little rap video. It's written by Vasya Oblomov, a brilliant writer and very good poet. And here he is joined by two popular personalities, Ksenia Sobchak, who used to be like an all-round Russian party girl, TV presenter, and so on, like, you know, the Russian equivalent of Paris Hilton. But suddenly became a prominent member of the protest movement. And Lenya Parfenov, arguably, you know, the most talented and the most artistic of all Russian TV personalities and journalists. It's called "Привет, Медведь." It's a song dedicated to Dmitry Medvedev, basically asking, so, who are you, Mr. Medvedev?
Вася Обломов, Ксения Собчак и Леонид Парфенов. И российский народ весь, все до единого здесь. Дмитрий Анатольевич, нам вас жалко, за олигархов вступилась Пугачева Алка, а ваших сторонников след простыл, вот российский народ про вас и забыл. Все обсуждают премьер-министра, уйдет он медленно или быстро, народ на митингах топчет снег, а у вас как будто бы больше нет.
Вот выступили бы на Поклонной горе или на Сахарова в декабре, сказали бы свое слово публично, а премьер-министру можно и лично о том, что думает наш президент. За ваши голосовал огромный процент. Как победить коварный госдеп? Страна в смятении, а власти нет.
Мы писали вам в Твиттер, но вы молчали, в Фейсбуке писали, вы не отвечали. Дмитрий Анатольевич, дайте ответ, есть оранжевая угроза или нет? Стоит бояться отката назад, системного кризиса, попадания в ад, взрывов домов, коварных чеченцев, Року Умарова, нападения немцев. Как там понять без вашего слова, нужен нам Вова или не Вова? Неужто Путин нас всех спасет? Сказали бы честно, что вас не ебет, что тихо стояли вы у руля, и нами не правили даже и дня. Мы все продоставим, мы видим насквозь, что были мы вместе, что будем мы врозь. Никто и не думал вас оскорблять, но Дмитрий Анатольевич даже, блядь, сейчас печется о судьбах страны. Выборы были, и они странны. Даже стрелки часов не повернуты вспять. Путин вернется, повернет опять. Хоть раз бы сказали нам всем от души, поговори же с нами, не в Твиттер пиши.
It's a very funny song. Well, it's a pity that some of you don't understand the lyrics. So, and from the end of 2011, of course, you know, we've had this huge protest movement, and also a lot of new protest music. And it's very important to say one thing. You know, I've been at all those rallies, sometimes made speeches, and so on. And well, I've been inside of this movement, but also I was observing it from the outside. And very often, Russian protest movement is compared to similar types of popular riots that are happening elsewhere, like the Arab Spring, like the Occupy movement in the USA and Western Europe and so on. And of course there are some similarities, but I think that what's happening in Russia is utterly different from what is happening in other countries. Primarily because there is no economic agenda in Russian protest movement. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but the kind of slogans and the speeches that the protesters displayed in winter 2011-2012, they've been about honesty, about transparency, about human dignity, about respect for citizens and so on. Nothing about unemployment, low wages, job cuts and so on. Absolutely not. So this of course gave the authorities some argument to call this whole movement like a revolution in fur coats, or a revolution in sheepskins, which was partly true because it really was a revolution of this middle class, of the educated young people, of the so-called creative class, the IT crowd, and so on. But I can tell you that you know, the feeling was tremendous, because all those manifestations, no matter how huge they were, and at Улица Sakharova in December 2011, there was no less than 100,000 people. All those gatherings, they've been absolutely 100% peaceful. They felt like народное гуляние, you know, people's feast, you know, people's festival, you know. People came there with their kids, and a lot of them, maybe every 10th, was holding some kind of self-made slogan. And these slogans, they've been very witty, very humorous, and maybe you can trace down on eBay or somewhere a book called Азбука протеста. It's a Big 4 album which is fully dedicated to these slogans. Now, unfortunately, it's impossible to buy this book in Russia for the reasons I will tell a little later. There also was a big exhibition of those art objects, including also one of my costumes, at the Art Play Gallery in Moscow, and soon this exhibition will be displayed at Victoria and Albert Museum in London, which is not a bad place for it. So let me just tell you a few things about music. So all kinds of new protest music was suddenly all over the internet. Of course, it was never on radio, never on TV, because both radio and TV are 100% controlled by the state. But the internet and concerts and meetings, you know, they've been full of new music. And different kinds of artists performed it. Some were the young guys, like Noise MC and Vasya Oblomov, whom you've already seen, but also a lot of people from the 80s have kind of reanimated themselves, rose from their graves, removed dust from their guitars and started to sing songs again, because these zeros, this decade was completely lost for both civil movement and the music. And now, of course, it's happening again. So let's see a little piece of video by Center, led by Vasily Shumov.
Наркотиков у вас вдруг обнаружить могут. Вы знаете, бывает, статью пришьют и посадят. Подумайте о ребенке, мы знаем, где детский садик. Хотите, чтобы отторгли ваш договор аренды, чтобы обнулились продажи ваших брендов? Подумайте, что к вам придут и вдруг отнимут бизнес. Прикиньте, что вы можете внезапно скоро постижь, но это совсем не угрозы. Обдумала пройдет государство бульдозер. Это совсем не акт устрашения, просто мотивация правильного, разумного, покорного и безмолвного поведения.
So this whole scenery was so inspiring that it has also attracted the most unlikely people. Like me, I've already read you the translation of my song, and I'm very proud, and I would like you to give a big applause to Misha Antipov, also known as Kiri Septon. He's the guy who has composed and played all music of this song that you are going to hear right now. It has been recorded in maybe 10 minutes. Yes, Misha?
15, Artemy Troitsky.
Okay, maybe 15 minutes, and the rest, of course, is history. And it's called Shaiku Putina na Nары. So there are several versions, well, actually a lot of video versions of these songs, about 20 or 30. Some live recordings and also a lot of do-it-yourself videos. You've seen one of them in the very beginning, even before the lecture, but now I'm going to play the...
Подъем прыгать, потому что это рок-н-ролл.
Yes, this was the first performance of this song. So,
what does that title mean in English?
sorry?
What does that mean in English? The title?
Putin's gang behind the bars. But this was not the most unlikely performer. I mean, myself. I mean, I'm a kind of bohemian type, and of course, it was quite predictable that I would be, against Putin and behind the bars and so on. But let's see somebody who's completely different. And this is a band of Russian airborne forces, who are like Russian military.
Если ты президент, для тебя есть закон, для тебя есть запрет. Из казны не воруй, и не лги никогда. Будь открытым для всех, отвечай за слова. 8 лет президент, ты опять кандидат. Посмотри нам в глаза и закрой свой мандат. Доверяли тебе, а ты врал много лет, применяя во всем свой КБшный секрет. Ты такой же, как я, человек, а не Бог. Я такой же, как ты, человек, а не лох. Не дадим больше врать, не дадим воровать. Мы свободы десант, с нами Родина мать.
Okay, so such guys are supposed to be, you know, the core of Putin's electorate. So here they are. Of course, you know, Putin's propaganda, they immediately got really scared by such display of unloyalty from the armed forces, and they tried to say that they're fake airborne desantniki. But apparently they are absolutely real. And there's plenty of other videos I was going to show you, but I will not, because I've been asked to save some time for questions and answers, which may follow. If they will not follow, I will play more videos. Okay, so you choose. But I'm happy to answer whatever questions. So you know what has happened next? Next were Pussy Riot, who played it at the Church of Christ the Savior, and this was also the beginning of a major crackdown on both the protest movement and its cultural part. I have to say that Pussy Riot's performance has been really provocative and really contradictory. It has not only split the whole Russian society into those who sympathize with them and those who wanted to lynch them. It even has split the members of the protest movement, because a lot of them, including many of my friends who I really love and respect, they said they shouldn't have done this in the church. You know, they should have done it somewhere else. Then there would be no objections. But of course, all the members of the protest movements, they did agree that the reaction of the state was absolutely inadequate. So this is, you know, why we all supported the band, no matter whether we supported their action, their particular action, or not. What happened later was like, you know, the worst case scenario. 1 year ago, we did hope that the country may change for the better. And this change will come through a dialogue between the authorities and between the intelligentsia, the intellectuals, the creative people, and the protest movement. Unfortunately, there was no dialogue. It's been 100% rejected by the authorities, and instead they've started to, how do you call it? To tighten the screws, yes. To tighten the screws. And it's done in the most vicious way, because what's actually happening in Russia now is something that I call, and I think it's a very apt description, I call it cold civil war. because there is a minority of population, but a very active and very smart minority, you know, which is totally against not even authoritarian, but right now I think it's closer to totalitarian rule that we have in Russia. It's, in some ways, I would even call it fascist. And of course, there's also those who support it. Most of them are paid for this support. But there's also a huge kind of swampy land between the two poles. You know, most Russians, you know, who simply don't care. And the popular myth, which is shared, as I have noticed, by some people in America as well, is that the silent majority actually supports Putin and likes him. This is not so. I travel a lot in Russia, and I talk a lot to people, and I can tell you, nobody likes Putin. No one in their right mind, and sobriety likes what's going on in the country and approves the ways Putin and his clique rule the country. The difference between us and those guys is simply because we want to change something. They are totally kind of tired, apathetic, half drunk, half dead, and although they hate Putin, they, you know, they simply, you know, don't want, you know, to move their ass and stand up and go somewhere and do something. And this of course is sad, and I also think that this is one of the shortcomings of the opposition movement. And I think that right now it is high time to work with this kind of people, and it's impossible to do without also putting some economic slogans on the forefront, because you know, we care about human dignity. They care about survival and wages and schools and medical care. And of course, you know, we also need this. So we have to unite our forces and try to achieve this. So this is the kind of agenda that we have in front of us. But what's happening now? It's not even funny. Russian Parliament, the State Duma, they've adopted a whole bunch of new laws, which really drag the country back to dark ages. I mean, even beyond Stalinism, they take it, I don't know where. I've never been to such places where our parliament and our president want to take us now. These laws are absolutely xenophobic. These laws are totally against basic human rights of the 21st century, you know, like the gay rights and such things, or against the NGOs. What the authorities want to achieve now in Russia is apparently to convince the majority of Russian people that those who do not support Putin are A, gay, B, atheist, C, paid by the State Department of the United States and by the CIA. And all this sounds like a joke. I mean, you know, it's such a stupid propaganda. I mean, you know, would make Goebbels envious. But in reality, this is not a joke. This is really so. They all, from the highest kind of podiums, they talk about it absolutely seriously. Therefore, of course, the mood in Russia is terrible. I mean, I've never seen my country as unhappy and frustrated as it is now. Hence, the common urge to go somewhere. Like Misha, who you have just applauded, my favorite Moscow surf musician. He and his family, I even didn't know that. I only found out about it today. They've escaped from Russia and they are now applying for American citizenship. And the same is happening with hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Russians. Those who haven't done it before, they are trying to do it. And what will happen if all this happens? It will be an absolute nightmare. I mean, Russia will become, a failed state, and Russia will become kind of a cannibal country, where there will be no people, no nothing, only those oil pumps where slave workers from Tajikistan will pump oil. Of course, they will be surrounded by Russian police, by Siloviki, and Siloviki will be entertained by Stas Mikhail. I mean, this is what Russia is going to be if this process will go on. And of course, we, will try our best not to let it happen. And meteorites will help us. That's it. 20 minutes during which I can answer your questions.